Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to my travel blog channel. However, this video has nothing to do with traveling. So if you're looking for travel content, this is not the video for you. However, as per what the title and the description said, if you would like to know what it's like to have intraocular lens exchange or YAG or any of those fun things, you are in the right place. So just as a kind of brief introduction, my name is Ryan. I am a 30-year-old male that has had absolutely atrocious vision my entire life. While many people have like -2, 3, 4, some might have a little -5, 5.5, and a little bit of stigmatism in each eye. Now you got to go way, way higher than that. I was in the -13, 14s, 15s plus for most of my life. And only within the last 5 years has my vision actually stopped changing to the point that I was able to do the procedures that I'm about to talk about in this video. All on top of having just absolutely piss poor vision. I have always been at a higher risk than normal people for retinal detachment, along with other complicating factors with my eye that just led to a very bad day most of my life when it's come to my vision. And so this video is meant to discuss my journey to where I have gotten today and what's next from here. So before I get into all the details of that, I want to give a disclaimer that the opinions I'm about to state are the opinions of me and me alone based on my experience with the procedures that I've had. I'm not getting paid to promote anybody or any specific procedure or any specific thing or any lenses. But I feel that it is very important that I share this experience with all of you, because especially for those that may be in a similar situation to me, where you have really, really, really bad vision, it's really hard to find content from really anybody on eyes such as my eyes and what I was going through. It was actually very hard to find any statistical data to compare my specific situation to prior to jumping into this, because there's not that many people out there with my extreme prescription that are actually trying to do any of the things that I'm going to talk about. So I hope for those that have vision issues similar to me, and for those that may have any type of vision issues and are looking for another opinion, pros and cons of the procedures I'm going to talk about, I hope you find some type of enjoyment and education from what I'm going to talk about in this video. And please, if you have any questions about anything that I either talk about but I wasn't really clear on, or anything that I didn't talk about that you may like to know, please feel free to leave a comment in whatever video platform I upload this video to. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So as I said at the start of this, my vision is incredibly bad. It was incredibly bad up to my journey. Over the last 10 years, ever since I got out of high school, I have been searching for different options and potential surgeries that could even remotely treat the type of vision issues that I have. I know that there's a very big chunk of people out here that are very anti anything with your vision, that, you know, you should just be blessed that you're not blind, leave your eyes alone, because continue to wear glasses and contacts for the rest of your life. And trust me, if this was an option that I felt was incredibly suitable for me and was achieving the vision that I needed, I promise you guys, I would have done just that. I wouldn't even have started this journey. But due to some complicating factors that started to develop in my mid-20s, I did make a decision that it was time to go ahead and start this journey to fixing my eyes to the best of the ability that I could. So again, 10 years ago, I had a LASIK evaluation, and as you can expect, I didn't pass it. And I'm actually missing the most important part to let y'all know where my vision ended up settling on at. So 10 years ago, when I first went to the LASIK Institute, the one that's here in Virginia, I didn't pass that. I didn't qualify for anything because of the extremity of my vision. At that time, my eyes were a -14 in both eyes, and that was -14 myopia. For those that do not know, that's the terminology for nearsightedness. And I was incredibly near. So you're talking about, if the phone's right here, I'm good. But if it's right here, I can't see anything. And even if the big letter E was right here, my vision was so atrocious that I couldn't even see the big letter E. So we're talking some incredibly extreme vision issues. And as of such, there were no surgical procedures available at the time, or any surgeons that were willing to operate on someone with my level of extremity. Because as you guys should know, for those who have even remotely researched into LASIK, which is the most popular laser eye procedure, normally once you're getting up into the higher numbers, -7, 8, and 9, you drastically lose options or surgeons who are comfortable operating on that level of strength. And then obviously when you're in my boat where you're -13 and above, ain't no surgeon touching your eyes. And I don't blame them. I mean, when you see the inherent risks and concerns of a LASIK procedure and what they're actually doing to your eye, um, it's it's very scary stuff, and also can be equally rewarding if everything goes right. But for someone like me, operating on someone with that level of myopia, it is almost impossible to guarantee a safe outcome. And so as of such, that initial time, there was no surgeon who was willing to work with me at the time. No harm. I said I'd check back in 5 years, especially once my vision settled. So, little fast track, 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I did revisit another LASIK Institute type center here closer to my area. So instead of traveling up to Richmond, I actually went closer to a location here in the 757 where I live at. And at that time, the vision had finally stopped changing, or at least we believed it did. It had actually went down a little bit. So I went from a -14, a -14 and a half, to now it looks like I was holding at a -13, a -13 and a half in both eyes, which 6 months after when I had my follow-up, I was then a -13 and a half in both eyes, and my vision has remained a -13 and a half all the way up until the surgery I'm about to talk about. So, but at that time, due to the extremity of my vision, all laser surgeries were still ruled out. And at the time, we didn't consider anything like a cataract surgery or anything, because A, it wasn't really brought up to me at the time, or an IOL, which also wasn't brought up to me at the time, and B, just because we wanted to wait a little bit to see if my vision had changed any. So now, a year ago, and I'm so sorry, my neighbor's dogs are now barking in the background. Nothing I can do about them. Their dogs are really crazy. But now, fast track to a year and a little over a year and a half ago. Yeah, about a year and a half ago. January of 2020, right before the pandemic shut. January 2020? Scrap that. January 2021, while we were in the midst of the pandemic and I had nothing but time on my hands and had just recently purchased a house, I decided I was going to give it another shot. And this time I was a lot more motivated that there was going to be a good chance of finding an option that worked for me, because of the fact that my vision by this point had been 4 years stable. It had not changed since, and I was 29. And what's very important about being in this age bracket that I'm at right now is that they actually say when you're doing these type of eye-altering, life-altering medical procedures to change your vision, this is the best time, between the years of like 26 and 36 or something like that, because your eyes, no type of other disease has really started to settle into your eye yet, because your eye is still, it's not really in its peak time anymore, but its peak as far as when your eye is going to change. So for about 15, 20 years, your eye is not going to really have to, hopefully won't go through anything like infections or diseases or glaucoma or anything like that, heavens forbid. So my eyes were completely stable. They were stable. They weren't very dry. I have had dry here and there throughout my life, but recently my eyes haven't been that bad, including after the procedure that I'm going to talk about soon. So in January of 2021, after a 6-month search, and I think it's important to say I had been hunting left and right for doctors that might be comfortable operating on someone like me, my search actually ended up staying in the area that I live. And so I went to a eye center called Beach Eye Care, which is here in Virginia Beach, Virginia, obviously in the state of Virginia. And I met with a doctor. His name was Dr. Edgar Levine, and you can find him on any of the Health Grade or other surgery center websites. He has over 20 years of experience in operating not only on a variety of cataract patients, IOL patients, LASIK and PRK patients, but he has had experience operating on people with my specific strength of vision. So that was very important to me when I did my initial research. And so fortunately, when I went to Beach, I actually forgot to request him, but it ended up being that he was the one I ended up with anyway, which worked out perfectly. So we did a very extensive evaluation of my eyes. And after doing a very extensive evaluation of my eyes, basically all the same tests that I did 2 times before, just with a lot more fancier machines now, because I will say from 10 years ago to now, machines and the technology that we have in these machines to analyze eyes, I mean, it's just, excuse my language, fucking phenomenal now. It's amazing what you can evaluate. It's amazing the technology that we have now to look in deep into the eye and see everything that's going on. I know I talked to my parents a lot about this, and they just wish that there had been something, my parents and grandparents, and they just wish there had been something like this type of technology 20-25 years ago. So yeah, it's really wonderful that we have this. So but yeah, we finished all the tests, and I waited about 30-35 minutes for the results to be analyzed. And so I finally officially met with Dr. Levine for the first time in January of 2021. At that time, we did look at my numbers, and while, again, same like before, we did completely rule out LASIK and PRK, he was the first surgeon to fully discuss with me IOL. And for those that do not know, that term is called intraocular lens, and the procedure for it is called an intraocular lens exchange. So what that basically is, and I apologize, I do not remember all the medical terms, so I'm probably going to water some of these words down. It basically is them just putting a little slit in your eye. They go in, of course, they put you under light anesthesia just to calm you down. They go into the eye. They actually suck out the old natural lens that is in your eye, and they put in an artificial implant. Just crazy stuff, just absolutely crazy stuff, guys. I tell you, the entire procedure was one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. Well, for what I could see of it. So, but they go in, they put an artificial lens in, they close the wound up, and they send you about your day. And bada boom, bada bing, you have a new procedure. And what they recommended to me was a 2-part procedure. So the bad news is that as far as FDA approved lenses go, the only lens that he could recommend putting in my eye with my strength were panoptic lenses. And I had the option of monofocal lenses or multifocal. What's the difference, Ryan, between those two? Well, monofocal is going to focus on a specific strength in your vision. Do I care about my distance vision more, or do I care about my near vision and intermediate vision more? Depending on your answer to that determines which monofocal lens you get if you want one that's meant for your farsightedness or your nearsightedness. However, of course, this is me we're talking about, and because I do a lot of desk work and then I do a bit of driving at night, it was very important that I have both of those layers of vision in place as much as they can possibly be. So that complicated things a little, but then that's when we talked more about the Panoptix multifocal lens. Now, here's the situation with multifocals, and anyone who's done their research on an IOL procedure knows that a multifocal lens can and will cause rings around lights and potentially halos at night. The risk is very low for people of low prescriptions. We're talking about, and I think like in the multifocal, I think in those is like -1, -2, all the way up to like a -3. It's not so bad. You might see a little bit of a halo or a little bit of a ring through the duration, but within the coming months, 99% of those patients don't have those rings or halos anymore. Now, and when I say that, I mean that I need to correct myself. They may have a little bit of ring or a little bit of halo, but for many of the patients that I have learned through research, many of them are small and insignificant enough that it does not affect their day-to-day life. Now, that potential for moderate rings, so we're talking about rings and halos that can kind of affect your ability to do certain things at night if you haven't retrained yourself to work around that. That starts happening when you start getting up into the higher negatives, which I believe my lens is the strongest one. Negative 6.0. So, and that is really strong. Really strong. So it's the strongest that's available right now, at least to my knowledge from what the surgeon told me. So once you start getting up into prescriptions like what I have in my eyes, and we're going to talk about that, the risk of having halos and rings is almost guaranteed. You will have rings. And so I want to just flat out say this right now for anyone watching this video that might have vision very close to my vision. If you're considering this procedure after you get it, you need to accept that if you get a multifocal lens, you will have rings. There's nothing you can do about it. It is a trade-off that you have to look deep inside of yourself and determine if it's something that you want to deal with or not prior to moving with the procedure. If you answer no, but you still want to have one layer of your vision handled, get the monofocal, because your life's going to be a whole lot simpler giving a monofocal than getting a multifocal. So anyway, he brought up, he talked to me about the multifocal lenses, and after he talked about the multifocal lenses, he, as I just explained to y'all, explained to me about the considerable risks that I could have rings. Moderate rings, nothing too severe that it would be crippling, but moderate enough that it will affect certain ways of how I do things, particularly at night, because during the day, there's no effect. I'm perfectly fine during the day. It's wonderful. So yeah. So then what he said was, even with the strength of the lens that we were putting in, we're going to put the strongest available FDA approved lenses from PanOptix in both of my eyes. It would not 100% correct my vision. And that we would have to do, and I know that the second I say this word, every anti-LASIK, anti-everything person's going to flip out. Touch-up LASIK would need to be done to correct any residual refraction. So I know, and I want to say, I say that understanding that every single complaint and complication I have heard in my reviews of people who've had bad effects from LASIK is 100% legit and substantiated. I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video. So I do not want, as much as I'm laughing about that, don't worry. I understand the reason why some people would say, don't touch it, don't do it, touch up LASIK, a whole nother procedure, you're going to die, they'll get rid of your vision, your eye will fall out. I know. We'll get to that though. So, of course, when he presented the option and he said that that with these two procedures, it is a good 90 to 95% chance that we will be able to get you to a 95% chance that we will be able to get you to at least 2025, and about a 60 to 65% chance that we will get you to 2020. And then, of course, some people who have the touch-up LASIK or any type of LASIK for that matter, LASIK or PRK, some of them end up with just astronomically great vision. We're talking 2018, 2015. I think one person went all the way down to like 28. It was just the craziest thing to think that a laser burning your eye and reshaping it can literally give you a whole new lease on life, even better than normal. So it's just crazy stuff. So after he explained everything to me, I said, I slept on it for a day or two, and then I called them up and we talked about it. Actually, we went ahead and did the initial paperwork, but I officially confirmed that I would proceed with it a few days after the fact, after sitting on it and sleeping on it. Dr. Levine, this again, I know that a lot of people say that there's a lot you wish your surgeon would have told you about any of these elective or major procedures to your eyes before they actually went through with it. He was incredibly thorough with me. He did not sugarcoat around the fact that there was a lot of inherent risks with doing this. Risks that have been significantly reduced thanks to our advances in technology and things being bladeless now, and the fact that they're not having to do as much with a scalpel as they once used to have to do. These type of things that make these type of surgeries much simpler. But as I told y'all at the start of the video, my biggest issue is that I am a high-risk candidate for retinal detachment, much higher than a normal human being. So high, in fact, that that's another reason why only certain surgeons would feel comfortable operating on my eye, because one wrong mistake, I'm blind for life. So, but you're now probably asking, with all these issues, why would you risk it anyway? And the answer is, in the last couple of years prior to me deciding to do this procedure, to actually commit to a full surgical procedure to correct my refraction issues, contacts and glasses were starting to fail me. And what I mean by that is we were stretching the prescription of my glasses and contacts to the furthest we could while giving me the best possible clarity of vision and astigmatism correction, because I had astigmatism in both my eyes too, relatively moderate. And when we in the last 2 years before I committed to seeing a surgeon to look through my options again, my glasses and contacts prescription itself was more or less regressing. So basically my vision wasn't really changing, but my eyes' ability to basically correct the world around me with how it was seeing objects, the clarity and the sharpness that my glasses and contacts was once giving me was no longer there. And so I went from getting close to 20/25 vision normally, and take note, I never had 20/20 with my glasses or contacts. It was impossible to get me there because of just a lot of complicating factors with my eyes. But it was just the last 2 years has been very frustrating. And the last year before the pandemic started and before I committed to this journey, my poor primary optometrist, I mean, bless his soul, he did the absolute best he could to get me a custom contact to work through. We worked through 6, 7, 8 types of custom contacts to see if something would get me the clarity I needed to at least achieve the 20/20. The best we were getting out of those contacts was 20/40, and I still wasn't overly feeling confident wearing them. And that, accompanied with the fact that it looks like issues that I was always told I might have problems with much earlier in my life compared to other people, those issues started to happen. And so ultimately I made a decision that I'm already at a high risk for one day waking up and not having my vision anymore, being completely blind. And if with these circumstances before me, if there's any chance I can at least improve the quality of my vision the longest I possibly can before I start experiencing the inevitable issues anyway, I would take them. And with me being at the age that I'm at, I figured that now was a better time than ever to go ahead and try to take that journey. So I understand that there's a lot of people who will watch this, and even with what I just said, you'll be like, but it's still not worth the risk. And I respect that. I do. And I assure you, I was scared shitless, excuse my language again, thinking about what we were getting ready to do. But once I come back, because I hear my doorbell ringing, so I'm going to see what's up there. I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to you about the rest of this journey. Hey guys, sorry about that. Everything's now handled at my house, and we're going to continue on with this discussion. So as I just said in the previous video, while I understand all the risks that are associated with the previous part of the video, while I understand all of the risks that could come with the procedure that we were discussing, along with all the risks, I just determined that ultimately the reward far outweighed the risks, being that the risk of me waking up blind at any time, it's just always going to be there, whether I do this procedure or not. So in my eyes, I might as well, if I'm at that age where it's now proven that there's a really high probability that this will go very well for me and it can be done, let's go shoot our shot and let's see what happens for there. So again, I officially did commit into the 2-part surgery. So we would do the intraocular lens exchange, otherwise known as an IOL, in October of last year. And then 6 months after, if everything was healing properly from the IOL and there were no major complications that ultimately resulted in us needing to take the IOL out, we would proceed with the touch-up LASIK to conclude the journey. So fast forward 1 month before the surgery, I had to go back in to do rescans, and I know that I just said October was the original dates. October was actually not the original dates. It was more like March or April, but due to scheduling conflicts on my end and the fact that I couldn't do it at a time that I needed to do anything at work, I had to reschedule my surgery to October. So a month before we rescheduled for the October date, for the intraocular lens exchange. I went back in to redo the scans, make sure nothing changed with my vision, made sure there was no complications, no pressure level challenges, nothing that had started to develop in my eyes, diseases, retinal issues, etc., etc. And everything went fine. However, we identified in both of my eyes, and he believes that he might have missed this in the initial checks, I had baby cataracts forming. So the negatives to that is I had baby cataracts forming. The positives to that is because it was now going to be labeled as a full cataract surgery with a lens being put in after the fact, my insurance would cover the cataract portion of the surgery, which ultimately ended up saving me about, I think about $5,000. So the quote I was given for the intraocular lens exchange, 6 months of post-op, and the touch-up LASIK was 9,600 United States dollars, and they covered about, I think they covered about close to 5,000 of it. So ultimately I ended up having to foot the bill for about another 5,000 because there ended up being a couple extra $100 that were here. So I think the total bill ended up actually coming up to about $10,000 even. 5,000 they covered, 5,000 I had to come up with out of pocket, which I ended up financing the rest of that. So through the Alphian credit. So yeah, but that definitely was a blessing and a curse. And again, as I was just telling you all about the fact that my eyes have so many issues that I've had to deal with over my life. Baby cataracts forming at this age don't surprise me one bit. So it was not a surprise to me when we identified I had baby cataracts going on in both of the eyes. And it ended up saving me money, and we were doing a lens exchange anyway, so why not? So the final day came. After all the preparation, after all the fear, after watching plenty of videos of the procedure, we finally got to the day in October. It was actually, so the surgery was 2-part, and I forgot to say that part. It is a 2-part surgery. Unlike PRK and LASIK, they do not do lens exchanges in both eyes on the same day. They will do the first eye. Normally your non-dominant eye will be done first, especially if any complications arise later. And then 2 weeks later, traditionally, if most surgeons, they will do your dominant eye. So we did my dominant is my right eye, my non-dominant is my left eye. So we started with my left eye. And the procedure relatively itself took about, I can't really remember because I was really woozy. I want to say maybe between 20 and 30 minutes max. Definitely not as fast as a LASIK procedure is, but fast enough. So, these type of surgeries, you never know how long they're going to last. And obviously for many people who are squeamish to the eye, the sooner the better. So I showed up to the eye surgery center for the first, and I'll just talk about the experience for the first procedure. Now I'll just talk about them for both. The first surgery was for my left eye, and prior to the surgery, you're given drops to start taking a few days before. I took those drops. Normally they're steroid drops. You're given 3 sets of drops. I got to the surgery center. They hooked me up to IV and everything, and that's when they confirmed what we were doing. We confirmed we were doing my left eye. The person who was going to be deployed, who was going to be using the anesthesia, she plugged me up to everything, and they took my vitals. And after waiting for about 30 minutes, waiting for the dilation in my eye to kick in, they rolled me back to the room, and this is where things get really crazy. So I didn't truly process how awake and aware I was going to be of everything that was happening to me until after I got rolled back and we actually started, and they were asking me questions. They were talking about follow the light, look at the light, don't not look at the light, things of that nature. I did not realize how awake you actually are. I didn't even realize how awake the people in all the YouTube videos I watched have the procedure actually were until I was the one on the operating table having the procedure. And my goodness, being aware of that, if you are a person that has that is squeamish to people being in your eye, to the clamps being in your eye to keep it open. Because take note that you do keep it, there is a clamp put in your eye, similar to LASIK and PRK, to keep your eye, keep you from blinking, that was put in while you're still awake. If you're not expecting that, it is definitely an uncomfortable sensation. With that said, there was never any pain. The first procedure, and I will say I think that the left eye went a little better than the right eye did, and I'll talk about the right eye in just a moment. So the left eye, when they operated on it, everything was painless, very minimum pressure. I could, obviously I was aware of everything that was happening, the machine coming up on my eye. I was aware when he started to do the slit and he was flushing out my eye, keeping my eye hydrated while they were taking out the old lens and putting the artificial lens in. And despite the fact that I was under light anesthesia, I was completely aware. I was talking with them the entire time. I actually remember most of the conversation that we were having in the room. And I also remember, though, that it did go quick. So the 20-30 minutes, to be fair, felt really like 5 or 10 minutes, but I realized after they told me what the time was that it had taken just a little bit longer, just because it took them a couple extra moments with my eye due to whatever I guess they ran into while they were working on my eye. So, but alas, the left eye was a complete success. I, of course, couldn't really see at all. I came out of the procedure pretty woozy. I didn't go to sleep, and like I said, I was talking and aware, but I was woozy after they got me out of the surgery room. They put me back to get me taken out, to let me settle down, to take everything out of me and to prepare me to leave, to go home. Again, you can't drive yourself home, and I wouldn't have wanted to do that anyway to myself either. So very grateful to my aunt who helped with this second surgery. Yeah, my aunt helped with the second surgery, and then I had assistance with the first surgery. So, goodness, recounting everything from 6 months ago, it's just chaos now. So much has happened since then. But after I finished up, they gave me my shades, they gave me my discharge instructions, and I'll say that for both the left and the right eye, the post recovery was interesting for the first couple of days, but I did very well. I went home, I went straight to sleep. It is very important for those of you who have an intraocular lens exchange, follow the instructions of your sheets to a letter. When they tell you to take those steroid drops once every 4 times a day to 3 times a day to 2 times a day to 1 times a day for a month, you must follow those instructions to the letter. If you do not follow those instructions, it will be a very, very bad, potentially painful and discomforting recovery for you. And I've seen plenty of videos of people who did not follow the instructions with the drops, and they had a very painful recovery. There was one day that I slipped up and forgot to take my steroid drops. I took it only twice that day, and when I was supposed to take it 4 times in the first week of the surgery, my eye was so dry and scratchy and miserable, I did not make that mistake a second time, and I did not have that issue for the rest of the recovery. But for the left eye, everything went very well. There were no really major complications, but I did identify a couple of interesting things. And before I talk about those, I wanted to go back to the issue with my right eye. So the right eye surgery went equally well 2 weeks after my left eye was operated on, and they put the artificial lens in. The only issue is they popped a blood vessel in the right eye. So there was, when the anesthesia and the steroids in the eye wore off, there was a little bit more pain in the right eye afterwards than there was with the left eye. I would say that I was my left eye was uncomfortable for about 2 days, and then it was perfectly fine by like day 4 and 5. My right eye took about 4 or 5 days before it really started to settle down. But once it did settle down, everything was good, and my left and right eye both equally. Not only were they relatively comfortable after the surgery, but I didn't really catch a lot of dry eye either, which was very surprising. So yeah, so that's why I just keep telling y'all, take your drops, follow the instructions to a letter. So with that said, one of the biggest adjustments that someone like me, after having the extreme nearsightedness I had to emotionally accept first, was the fact I could see. And guys, listen, even right now, when I wake up in the morning and I go to sleep at night, and I realize that I can do these things, I don't have to take contacts out, I don't have to take glasses off, I can go to sleep, I can wake up, I don't have to reach for glasses. I can go use the bathroom. I can go make breakfast. I can go straight to work. I can go work in the yard. I can do normal things that aren't driving without the need for glasses and contacts when you've had just incredibly horrible vision, even worse than the normal person like I have, along with all the other issues. I was immediately reminded to the impossible thing that we had just did. I knew all the risks that could have came from this surgery. I knew that something could have went very wrong and I could have lost my vision, which is very rare for cataract and IOL implants, might I note. It is incredibly rare for a mistake of that magnitude to happen, that your vision is actually destroyed. Normally, in a worst case scenario, you have to wait 6 months and they can just replace the lens. So I want to really throw that out there. It is very rare to next to impossible for you to lose your vision from a botched IOL implant. You're going to be uncomfortable. And I've heard of some people who have had, blurriness here and there, but to just outright lose your vision from an IOL implant and a cataract surgery, it shouldn't happen. It should not happen to anyone. So I want you to rest very assured that if you do ever have to get cataract surgery and a natural lens exchange or an IOL implant, which almost all of us will have to face once you get to much older years in life. Again, you're not supposed to have to do cataracts at my age, but alas, I just had every problem under the sun. So, but just know that if you do get to that point, it's an incredibly safe procedure and you'll be fine. So just follow the instructions with the drops and the rules that they give you. So with the emotions of being able to wake up and be able to see, obviously it comes with the negatives. And now it's time to talk about the rings. So, the rings. It's not the worst thing that it could have been, but I do have rings. And not only do I have rings, particularly from lights at night when I'm driving, but if you look at my eye in a certain way in the light, you can see the rings reflecting off of the lens. So, needless to say, because of how strong the prescription was for my eye, when my eyes did settle, and they're still continuing to adjust, and the rings are marginally better now, I had bad, really bad rings, and glare, and starbursts, and halos, and everything that they said was probably going to happen in the immediate days and weeks after the surgery was done. And after the initial excitement of having the ability to see basic things, it did get a little upsetting that the rings were as bad as they ended up being. I went in for my post-op 2 weeks and then a month and then 2 months after everything. We set extra post-ops for me because we knew that I'd probably have some residual complications, particularly with exactly what I'm talking about now. I just hoped it wasn't as bad. There was a good couple of weeks after the surgery. I just didn't feel safe driving at all at night. And it's important to know that if you remember, I said that we only got me as far as the lenses could correct me. So I went from being, I didn't say the most important part at the beginning. So I was 1500 in my left eye and 1600 in the right eye, just atrocious. So with the IOLs, just the IOLs by itself, no YAG and no LASIK, I was right at 20/50 in both eyes in the immediate weeks after. That was a monumental change, might I note, from the 1500 and 1600, but obviously not good enough to drive. To legally drive, you have to have 20/40 or greater in both eyes to be able to legally drive without the need for corrective lenses. So, so this meant that I could do everything in like this room. I could do everything in this general vicinity, and I could do yard work. I could do every basic thing, but I could not get behind a motor vehicle without glasses. So shortly after, I think I waited about 3 weeks or so after the last surgery, and then I did go and pick up glasses to the prescription that I was at the time, pre-YAG and pre-LASIK, just to help me with the residual issues that I had with my vision after the IOL implants were put in. But the major issues with the glare, the starbursts, and the halos and the rings, they were they were very obstructive. I'll be fair. And so if you have a high prescription like me, you need to be aware. It's going to be it's going to require a lot of patience from a healing standpoint, and an understanding that there's a very good probability you are probably going to have what's known as a YAG laser procedure. So 2 months after the second surgery happened, it was close to the end of December, getting ready to go into the new year. Talking with the surgeon, we did identify that I had some residual debris and cloudiness in my in the behind the back area capsule. So the capsule that holds your lens in place, I think it's called the post-ocular capsule. I'm so sorry, I know I messed that name up. I'll make sure to correct the name of that in the description when I finish posting the video. But the capsule that holds your lens, or now the artificial lens, can also get cloudy. And if it's cloudy enough, particularly as something that can happen after a cataract surgery is done, it can create effects of what's known as a second cataract. But it's not actually a second cataract. It's just the capsule has become incredibly cloudy, and now they're going to have to make a clearing in that capsule so that you can see clearer with your new lens. And that is what's known as a let me confirm real quick. I got the name right here. A YAG Laser Capsulotomy. So we did determine at the end of December that a YAG procedure would need to be performed in both of my eyes, separate from the LASIK that we were discussing, in order to clear up that cloudy capsule. That should relieve the glare, the extreme halos, and the starburst that I was having. And it would ultimately bring better clarity to my near vision. And again, because I'm making this video without any type of paper in front of me, I forgot to talk about my near vision. So my intermediate vision was fine. It looked great. But on top of a little bit of ghosting that I had after the ghosting, and a little bit of the shadows that I had around letters in really, really dark environments. Like if I'm looking at my TV behind me and it's really dark, even now, there's a little bit of a shadow around letters, but it's not really a concern to me. It doesn't really cause any obstructions with me being able to do things in the dark. So yeah. But my near vision, so that is me being able to look at my phone the way that I used to. I had to forever change how I read books and look at phones. And I had to first understand it, because I did not have the extreme near vision that I used to have, that when they put the implants in, even though the PanOptix implant was meant to be for intermediate, near, and distance vision, you still lose some of your near vision when an implant is put in. And I lost all of that extreme nearsightedness that I had. So I'm used to being able to have a phone right here or a book right here and it'd be crystal clear. Now I got to keep the phone all the way back here now for me to actually be able to properly read the letters. It took a lot of adjustment, and it is a little bit of an inconvenience, particularly when I'm doing things that have very, very small letters. Now, I will say with my near vision, reading small things on my phone and reading small things on a paper like this, it's different. So like with this paper, I can actually read the letters all the way to right here before they really get blurry. But because of how phones reflect off of your eyes and how your eyes perceive, and of course all the blue light and this and that, it obviously means that the phone has to be kept further back for it not only make it so that my eyes can read what's on the phone, but for me not to become irritated and get a headache. So these were things that it took a lot of adjusting. And even now it takes a lot of adjusting. However, it has gotten easier thanks to YAG. So the YAG, one thing he said is that when we did the YAG, it was also going to clarify, it was going to bring further clarity primarily to my intermediate and my near vision. And that 100% did happen. So this February, again, it was a 2-part procedure. We did the left eye, the non-dominant eye at the start of the month, and then the right eye in the middle of the month. We did perform the YAG Laser Capsulotomy procedure, which is basically you sit down in a seat. You are not put under anesthesia. They don't put a clamp in your eye. They put the dilation drops in. They have to make the dilation of your eyes to about half of what they would for a intraocular lens lens exchange. And then after they do that, they wait for about 30-40 minutes, make sure your eyes is nice and open and ready for the procedure. You literally sit down at a chair. The surgeon pinpoints this laser, very similar to some of the machines that you'll use when it does like the puff of air in your eye and everything. It's something very similar to that. You sit down at that machine, you stare at the light, he tells you where to look, and you hear him press a button, and he keeps pressing the button, and this little laser knows to target just the capsule area. It doesn't affect the lens, and it doesn't affect anything else. It knows to target just the lens, that the capsule that holds it, and it literally blows a hole in that lens. Blows a nice circular hole right in the lens to let all the light naturally flow into the into the IOL, which then of course is what helps you be able to see the world around you. So one of the immediate changes I saw after the dilation wore off when I got home was the world was even clearer than it was after the new lens was put in. And above all, I think I waited 2 or 3 nights before I actually went outside to take a look at what the nights look like. And this got emotional for different reasons. The halos, the glare, the haziness and cloudiness, all of that was gone. 100%, completely gone. The only thing that still remained was the rings. And we went into the YAG procedure understanding that the rings sadly could be something that will forever be with me as a part of these lenses. They will get better as the years go along, and they will gradually fade more and more as your brain neural adapts to the lens. But because of how strong these lenses are, I understood doing even the YAG that there was a possibility that the rings may never go away unless I change the lens out or just my brain just naturally neural adopts over time. So with everything that we expected to come out of the YAG procedure, it was a complete success and it did everything it was supposed to do. However, I did have one complication from that, and really complication / side effect. 8 out of every 10 patients that get YAG immediately report this issue too. So this seems to be a pretty widespread issue with any patient who gets YAG. One of the biggest risks is the chance for additional floaters in your eye. Remember that they're blowing a capsule wide open behind your lens. When they blow that capsule open, the debris has to go somewhere. In most cases, the debris dissipates itself. And as the laser is shooting it, not only are they shooting to make that hole, but they're also shooting at those little snippets of eye matter that naturally fades apart. And this eye matter is what we know as floaters. And there's several different types of them. You have the floaters that are kind of black and translucent. And then you have the cloud-like floaters that actually look like a little bit of a cloud that floats across your vision depending on what way you look. One issue even to this moment that I have is when I have like this light right here. If I look left, right, up, and down, I can actually see the cloud, a little residual of cloud float between my vision. It immediately dissipates out of my vision as soon as I finish looking in the direction I'm trying to look, but it's there. And one thing that is a thing with the YAG procedure is that the surgeons intentionally leave a little bit of, I think it's the flap that's connected to the capsule, something like that. I don't know the medical terminology for it, but the long story short of it is that as time goes on, it's supposed to either flap itself back and completely leave your central vision and you'll never see it again, or if it's a piece that broke off, it will naturally sink to the bottom of your eye. So it will actually, those floaters will naturally sink all the way to the bottom of your eye until they are no longer in your vision at all, no matter whether you look left, right, up, and down. So unfortunately for this, I do have them. They're not really obstructive to my day-to-day life whatsoever. But it is something I have to worry about. Also, he told me because of my being a higher risk for retinal detachment, even more than the normal patient, this is a procedure that can potentially cause retinal detachment if the laser gets too close to your retina. So he admitted to me that he saw it. He knows where it's at. He could have tried to dissipate one of the pieces, particularly the piece in my left eye, but it was too close to comfort. He didn't want to take that risk. And I had a lot of respect for him not doing that. And so with that said, this is just something that as time goes on, I will have to let the cloudy floater naturally dissipate and fall down. And sadly, this is one of the few benefits of getting older, because as you get older, floaters actually go down in your eye with time. So yeah. So with that said, everything that I wanted out of the YAG procedure went very, very well. As well as it could have gone. And again, there were no major complications. I was able to go immediately back to work. I think I did take the rest of the day off just to rest, because any eye procedure, I'll always give my eye a day to rest. Only this time, I only took the day off because I was under dilation. Probably would have went straight back to work after it. So, and that is important to know. Actually, and I didn't say that for the intraocular lens exchange or YAG. Both of these are procedures that you will want to take 2 to 3 days off of work. Well, ILO particularly, you'll want to take 2 to 3 days off of work. Most people are back to work by the 3rd day. Some people are back to work by the 2nd day, but I highly don't recommend that. I think you should at least give yourself a good 2 to 3 days to initially heal and allow your eye time to rest, especially if you're someone like me that works a computer job and looks at monitors all day, every day. Definitely want to give your eyes that time to rest and recuperate from the procedure. So yeah, with that said, here's where we are now. So at the present moment, on this day, on April 19th at 7:37 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I have had intraocular lens exchange in both my left and my right eye to correct most of my vision. At the current moment, I am plano in my right eye for refraction with a -1.5 astigmatism, and in my left eye, I have no astigmatism, but I'm a -1.5 in that eye for visual refraction. Right now I'm on the charts with my glasses and contacts I'm temporarily using as we wait to make a final. Well, we've already set the surgery, but as we wait to make a final game plan with the touch-up LASIK. My vision currently sits at 20/25 in both eyes. I'm 20/25 in my left and my right eye with corrective lenses still. Without corrective lenses, I'm still 20/50. So my eyes have relatively gotten as much as they're going to get out of the implants that are in, but again, 20/50 is a lot better than 20 over 1600. So, you know, this entire process has really been humbling. It's been emotional, and it's required a lot of patience. So the number one thing that I want to say to anyone that watches this video and has taken the time to listen through this whole thing, if you're someone who has vision like me, that has incredibly strong, outrageously strong vision, and I send nothing but good wishes to you and to me, because those of us who have to go through these extreme levels of poor vision, life is just such a struggle just to do basic things. And the one thing I want to say to you is be patient with the process. It's not gonna be an overnight thing. You might get lucky, and you might not have all the things that I had with the glares and the halos, but most of us with this type of vision will have extreme halos, and rings are a guarantee. You should just commit that if you get a multifocal lens with this type of prescription, you will have rings. You need to accept it as a way of life. If you don't want to deal with it, if you work at a job where you can't deal with it, do not get an IOL procedure. It's just not worth it. So with that said, we are now at the scariest part of this. And yes, LASIK, the #1 safest elective procedure in the United States, if not the world, I am calling the most dangerous. And that is because of all the reasons that I'm sure plenty of you have heard. I'm sure all of you have heard the many news snippets, the many people who have been anti-laser eye surgery, this and that. And you've probably also heard of the millions upon millions of people around the world who have gotten LASIK and literally have cried tears of joy and have celebrated for the rest of their lives having clear vision and being able to be independent from glasses or contacts. I've had a long time to think about this, and that time has come. We are now going to attempt to achieve the 20/20 part of my vision. And we're going into this with one major thing. Because of how strong my vision is and was, there is no guarantee after the LASIK I will be 20/20. We can only pray that that will be the outcome, but 2025 is what we are expecting, and I'm going into this final part of this surgery with full understanding and expectation that 2025 may be the best I can get out of the procedure. We have scheduled the surgery for the beginning of June, and in that time, I'm going to be meeting with my primary optometrist, again, not the one who's been performing my surgery, but my primary optometrist, to make a final decision on a yay or nay. I have looked through all the pros and cons. I've had 10 years to look through the pros and cons of LASIK. And because of the nature of LASIK, it's understood that some people, unfortunately, have had very bad results come from LASIK. While the percentage of people who've had bad results obviously is a relatively finite and very, as people would consider, trivial amount to the millions upon millions who had little to no issues in their post-recovery, I believe it is very important to acknowledge that things can go wrong when they are messing around with beaming a laser at your eye. For those who are watching this video and have no idea what's involved with LASIK, you should probably type in LASIK procedure and watch a video of what it actually is. But to give you a brief rundown, what it basically is they numb you down. I do not know if they dilate you or not, but I know that they numb you down for sure. After they've numbed you up, you're not under general anesthesia. You're completely awake for the entire procedure. And the entire procedure lasts about 10 minutes, 5 minutes each eye. What they do is it's a two-step procedure on two different machines. The first machine is the one that makes a flap. So your cornea is now at play here. And the cornea of your eye is, while it's the most durable point of your eye, it's also where a lot of your nerves are at. And a number one reason why a lot of people after LASIK have halos and starbursts is because as those nerves are healing, the healing process of the flap can create some discomfort with light sensitivity halos and starbursts and other unwanted visual imagery, especially during the night. So with LASIK, they lay you down, they put you in the first machine. Most of the advanced LASIK machines now are completely bladeless, so the procedure I'll be having will be completely bladeless. The machine it'll get really close to your eye, and it will actually make the flap for the surgeon. So all the surgeon will do is take the little scalpel that they have, they'll pull the flap back. After the flap is pulled back, that is when you are rolled over to the second machine to do the actual laser correction, where it is reshaping your cornea based on the prescription and the amount of cornea that you have. And so it's very important to remember that for LASIK, if you do not have enough cornea in your eye, they cannot operate safely with the procedure. Also, it's important to remember, and this is why a lot of people are against LASIK, that once they start burning cornea, there is no getting it back, and you only get one eye. So once you start burning, you want to make sure, and that surgeon has to make sure, that that prescription is absolutely perfect. And unfortunately, for many of the people who report bad issues, it wasn't perfect. Either they were undercorrected, or the flap healed wrinkly, or something of that nature happened. And unfortunately, the procedure ended not so much in failure, but it ended in a way that once the steroid drops and the things that were keeping your eye comfortable, once those drops wear off, for some people, it's a really miserable day, potentially miserable month, potentially lifetime of misery after the procedure is done. So these are things that I do keep into consideration as I'm getting ready for this. And the reason that I'm going to leave this up to my primary optometrist, the one who's been working with me through my adult life with my eyes, is because based on the fact that there are all those risks and the chances of having extreme dry eye, which is also a symptom that it seems everyone with LASIK has, just some a little worse than others, I just want to see if at this point my prescription, it's even worth going through this stress. One thing that I was very clear with my surgeon on is that I understand that even with everything we're doing, it is very probable that I'm going to have to wear glasses in the future. Actually, it's a guarantee. And I don't even think that's something that applies just to me. That applies to every single person who has any type of eye procedure. Eye surgeries are dealing with the situation of your eyes at that moment. At that moment. And that is so important to understand if you're going into making a decision, if you want to have a major eye procedure such as an intraocular lens exchange or LASIK or PRK. Your eyes do change. You get older. We all get old, as unfortunate as it is to say. And as you get into your 40s and your 50s and above, what your vision was 10, 15 years ago may not be what it is then. So that is the reason why I think a lot of people have a misconception, particularly with the LASIK, that it didn't work if they're going to have to wear glasses 10 or 15 years later. It's not so much that it didn't work. It was only meant to correct your vision for what it is at that time. One of the major things about LASIK and PRK and any type of vision surgery is that it only corrects, again, I've said this several times, I'm going to say it one more time, it only corrects at that time. It doesn't factor in your eyes naturally changing. So if it changes, that means your vision might get worse again. Or, heavens forbid, it gets better, but because you've already adjusted your cornea, now your vision's it's corrected too much, and that is something that has happened to some people. And now their vision they're getting headaches because now they can feel that their eyes are just a little bit too strong. Now, when you're wearing glasses or contacts, there's an easy solution to that. Take the glasses or contacts off, go about your day. But you can't take off something that's been burned and sketched into your eye. So it is just something that you have to really look at yourself. You have to talk with your doctor and talk with and listen to yourself and your body. And you need to truly think and understand, is the risk worth it? And my thing is, if you're someone who's not like me, who's not like the many people like me that are in these situations where we're already screwed no matter what, so we might as well shoot our shot. If you're someone that has bad vision, -3, 4, and 5, but you can easily correct it to 20/20 with glasses or contacts, and you are fearful of a LASIK that even if everything goes right from a symptom standpoint, your eyes are going to change in 15 to 20 years, you should probably not get it. And that's just the truth. You need to, and you need to understand that if you do get it and your eyes change, that has nothing to do with the failure of the procedure. It just has to do with the fact that the procedure never guaranteed it would correct you if your vision changed as you got older. So, and that especially applies if you get like glaucoma or something like that. And I pray that none of you that watch this video ever have to deal with that. But as we all get older, especially into our 60s and above, that is something we realistically have to worry about. So, with that said, I have decided as of this moment, I will commit to the touch-up LASIK, even understanding all of the potential complications that could happen. The one thing that could stop me, though, is if the surgeon tells me, or if not the surgeon, if my primary eye doctor looks at my situation and feels that it is simpler to just correct the residual refraction in both of my eyes, particularly just astigmatism in my right eye with like toric contact lenses or glasses. If we do make a decision in my next session that's due in about 2 weeks that that's what we're going to do, then I'll probably make one more video saying that I chose not to proceed with LASIK. If we do decide to proceed though, then I will absolutely be as transparent as possible with all of you, and I will make another video both before LASIK and after LASIK, and I promise you I will keep you guys up to date at least for the year 1 and year 2 mark, because a lot of people want to know how people are after the first year or two, and if I do go through with it, I promise you guys I'll let you guys know what's going on. So with that said, this has been a long video, and if you've made it to the end of this video, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you learned something from my experience, and I hope that you have a much better idea of what you may go through if you get a intraocular lens exchange, YAG capsulotomy procedure, or LASIK. If you have any questions about anything that I talked about in this video today, if there's any confusion about something I said, my comment section is open. I'd love to answer any questions. I'm not a doctor, I'm not an optometrist, and I'm not a surgeon. So there are certain questions you may ask me that I may not be able to answer for you, and I may refer you to some medical information from someone that can answer it. But if I can't answer it, I'll do everything in my power to answer it. So with that said, I want to end this video by answering one last question. Do I feel that this was all worth it from a money standpoint and from the stress standpoint, that this has been a really long journey? And the answer is, for someone like me, that literally I was running out of options, abso-fucking-lutely. Absolutely. It was worth every dime, every bit of stress, everything. It was absolutely worth it. You guys have no idea how life-altering what I've done up to this point has been for me. It has literally given a part of my life back that I have not been able to have all these years of having to stress going through hundreds upon hundreds, thousands of dollars of contacts and glasses just for it to barely get me to a passing mark. And to have this new lease on life with my eyes, which means a new lease on the world and how I see it, it's unreal. It's unreal. It's unexplainable. It's emotional. I've cried every other day about this. And, you know, I'm ready for this last part in this journey. So thank you again. Sorry that I said cuss words a few times here and there. I said I was going to try to keep this video as curse-free as possible. But there are certain things that I really wanted to express to y'all in the only way that I can on how important this has been to me. And again, I really do hope that you guys gain something from this. So again, my inbox is open. Thank you. And my comment section is open. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. And I will update you guys as I get closer to LASIK day. So until then, talk to you guys later.